בועז, אני יכולה לשאול אותם שאלה?
באנגלית אבל.
Of course.
In English. Good morning.
I must ask you something. Why to live in America if you wake up early on Sundays? I don't get it. למה? למה קמת כל כך מוקדם?
She's right.
מילא אני, אבל למה אתם?
And I was going to ask another question is I look at all of you. Didn't you party last night? How did you wake up? It's a good thing I came prepared because I think I would have been able to talk to them about soccer or anything else. Anyway, this morning, first of all, we're very honored to participate in this opening session today in the IAC. And you know, coming here this morning, I thought that everything has to do with the number 10. A few weeks or month ago, we celebrated in Tel Aviv 10 years for the newspaper I run in Israel. 10 years, it's a good thing. Now I think IAC, you're celebrating 10 years. We have something in common, huge success. We never believed to be so successful in Israel. You did not believe to be so successful here in America. But I look at also two amazing members of the Knesset in Israel, and I think that also number 10 has to do also with you. So although this is not going to be a political session, or in a way, not internal politics in Israel, but something to do with 10, which concerns you two. In Israel, you know, in April 2019, Prime Minister is going to celebrate 10 consecutive years. There's no one else? Please.
You know, I have proposed legislation to limit a prime minister's term, any prime minister, for 2 terms. Because too much power in too few hands for too long a time is never good for anyone.
אנחנו לא ניתן להם זכות הצבעה.
So, even if I had supported Prime Minister Netanyahu, which, as you know, I am the opposition for Prime Minister Netanyahu, but even if I did, I would not have thought that he should stay in office forever.
אפשר לענות על זה?
And afterwards, they dare say that in Israel Hayom, we don't respect the left. And now, of course, I'll come to you, Deputy Minister, and ask you concerning the Prime Minister and what is happening in Israel, because it's also about leadership in Israel. How come? Is the Prime Minister excellent, or there's no one else?
Israelis probably understand that if it's working, don't fix it. So it's quite working in Israel. I just brought this book, Israel, an Island of Success. This book was not written by politicians. This book was written by people that understand the economic system of Israel. And I think after he'll be 120 years old, Netanyahu's claim to fame probably will be the fact that he made Israel's economy one of the most successful economies in the world. And I really think to have that when the world is basically going crazy, when the Middle East is falling apart, and to be very consistent about ideology, which is a thing I really respect, I think this is what makes Netanyahu such a strong leader. And I think that there is another issue. And I'm sure my friend Merav will agree with me that the left wing in Israel is in a huge crisis. 2 of the alternatives to Netanyahu are making a reality competition. Who can be more Likudnik than the Likudnikim? And I think the fact that their leader used to vote Likud, was in the government of Netanyahu, didn't have any problem with his policy, and the fact that his first statement about what he's going to do with Labour Party is basically to change it. Some people are saying this is the Tony Blair move to change Labour Party. He's taking off the socialist flag. He's taking off the flag of removing settlements. It means something about huge crisis in the Israeli left. And I think that's the reason people always will go to the origin when they need to choose between someone who's trying to imitate the Likud and the real thing, the Likud.
Would you like to comment, please? And that's it. After your comment, we stop with internal politics and we go to serious matters.
Tzipi, I think, unfortunately, I am suspecting that too many people in this room, and certainly Israelis in America, have lived on their own flesh the gap between Netanyahu's excellent economy and their day-to-day inability to provide for their families from their income. I think it's common knowledge that one of the main reasons why Israelis, too many amazing Israelis, choose to live in America and not in Israel is because of the economy. So I'm
Absolutely
sorry,
not.
I do not subscribe to this success story.
So the
As
amazing
long as the economy is good for the numbers and for the international relativeness, but does not apply for people, for their mere life, this is not a success story.
Thank you very much, member of Knesset.
well, the only thing I
Michaeli.
can
No,
promise
no.
you,
I am the one here. It's not the Knesset here. I'm running the thing.
the only thing
And
I
I'll
can
only say
promise
one
you
thing.
that Merav can be very popular here, but in Israel she's going to keep on being the opposition for many years.
Very good. But I would say only one thing. We have this debate a lot in Israel, but today we're obviously, and permit me to bring you to other places, today we're obviously going to focus more on Israel, on Israeli life, in the US specifically, on how Israel is perceived and interacted by Jewish communities in the diaspora, in the US, and in particular, and how all Israeli Americans, whether they like it or not, are de facto a living bridge that combines true Israeliness, as you said yesterday, and patriotic Americanism, which I think is a win-win for both sides. And of course, the topics that have dominated the news recently in the transatlantic relationship, as you know, between Israelis and Jews are mostly focused on religious aspects. That's what we had in the headlines. And the most interesting development is the issue of the prayer services at the Western Wall, which ironically is much more loud, was more debated here in the US than in the actual place that matters, Israel. If you disagree, of course, I'll love to hear you. Now, the first thing I want to deal with is whether this is really a big of a development as we think it is. Are Israelis in America as concerned about this as the general Jewish population? Well, my guess is not, but I might be wrong. Perhaps what we see from Israel is not what people see from here, and vice versa. And what local Jews, local in brackets, see from their perspective is not the same as what former Israelis, see. And my first question concerns Judaism, and it will be to you, member of Knesset, Michaeli. You know, some in Israel, including the vast majority of secular Israelis, would probably tell you that the recent Kotel controversy was blown out of proportion. They say most Israelis don't really care about the compromise because they believe the Kotel, like all other religious institutions, should be run by the government as it's the current state, whether you like it or not, and reflects in Israel's democratic choice to let ultra-Orthodox have control over it. What do you say about that? How do you respond to the claim that non-Orthodox groups already have a small designated area there? What they really want is share control over the entire plaza. Please.
I think first and foremost, and this audience knows this, the thing about being a Jew in Israel is that you don't have to exercise necessarily the Jewish rituals because the public sphere is Jewish, because the calendar is Jewish. The holidays determine the beginning of the year, the Jewish holidays. The mutual day of rest is Saturday, the formal one, etc., etc. So the Kotel, so those who do not pray on a regular basis, the thing about the Kotel doesn't apply to them as much. But then again, to American Jews, who a vast majority of them are Reform and choose to exercise their religion and their belief in an egalitarian way between men and women, for instance, find the Kotel inaccessible for them. And those who do the same in Israel, once again, are being deprived from this holy place for all of us, the Kotel. So even if secular people in Israel do not realize why this is so dramatic, I think that Israel, that really needs to live up to its role of the nation state of the Jewish people and the homeland of every Jew in the world, cannot afford to have such a huge part of the Jewish people excluded and deprived from the Western Wall.
Thank you.
Now, I would just like to say, you know, Mark Twain defined patriotism, so to be patriotic is to support your country always, but your government only when it deserves it. So I am all for the government running the holy places in Israel, by all means. I am not for the government handing over all the authorities to a sector of ultra-Orthodox that will determine who is Jewish and who is not, and who can do what. That's all.
I see. Thank you. I see that you brought with you your fan group. You came with a big plane. Nice. And Ms. Hotovely, of course, I'd like Ms. your reaction to that, and I'd like also to add another question. Do you think that the Orthodox streams in Israel have the proportional weight, or are they overrepresented in Israeli life?
Well, as you know, I'm in a secular party, and I'm not representing the religious people in Israel. I'm actually representing the majority people in Israel. And one thing I do agree with Merav is the fact that the secular people in Israel are not interested in the reform movement. And let me show you how I can explain that.
That is not what I said.
But this
There
is
is-
the truth. This is the truth, Merav.
No,
They-
I
they
don't know
never
if
agree.
it's the truth,
They
but
agree
it's
on nothing.
definitely not what I said.
The secular people don't need the reform movement in order to do whatever they feel like
Yeah.
in a secular country like Israel.
That's not true.
And the
Once
thing
again,
is-
they cannot go to the kotel and pray
Oh, come
together
on.
as a
When
family.
was your last
for
time in the
instance.
kotel? Can you possibly tell me?
Yes.
Do you know that Ezrat
Oh.
Israel is quite empty most of the time? The
That is
solution
because-
that the people here are interested in, people are not coming even
No.
to come and pray.
So for
and
you, it's
worship.
provocation.
I think
I
that
will
they're using the kotel
Okay.
in order to get the approval of the state of Israel on different streams that are very important here, but are totally irrelevant to the secular people in Israel. Now, the thing is, this is what I'm trying to explain to the American people. Your issue is not with the ultra-Orthodox people. The place where American Jews lost Israelis is not because of the ultra-Orthodox people. With all the respect, when Labour Party was controlling, they didn't do anything in order to change the rules of Giyur or changing the rules of the Kotel. They were part with Shas and the Agudat Israel, and there is a reason to it. And the reason to it is the fact that the majority seculars in Israel don't understand the concept of pluralist Judaism, because for them, pluralist Judaism means to be secular. And that's the story. And I think for many people, this is a political story of the ultra-Orthodox people, but this is really the majority of the people in Israel that are not interested in that. This is why I think that the compromise of the Kotel, by having Ezrat Israel as a place that everyone can feel comfortable to pray, is already working. But people are not coming there. Look, most of the year it's empty. This is the sad story of people that want to have solution, but they don't really want to use it. And I'm really sad about it. I wish you would have used it.
You would
Yes,
I would like to
by
hear
all
your
means.
reaction.
You know, this is very typical, what you have done. First of all, to claim that I said that the secular people in Israel are not interested in the reform, which A, I didn't, and secondly, I disagree. But the more important thing is that the compromise was, in the beginning, rejected by anyone who believes in pluralism in the Kotel and in the belongingness of the Western Wall to all of us. What they have demanded rightfully from the start is not to get some kind of territory at one of the ends of this holy place, but rather to be part of the main rachava of the Kotel and to be able to
Agreed on
use
the
it
compromise.
just as much as the ultra-Orthodox can, and not according to their standards and criteria. This is what should have
They
been done.
agreed on the compromise.
They finally, well, I didn't. I never. So as a secular
The
Israeli, first and
representatives of
foremost,
the Jews in America agreed on the compromise.
you are speaking now to one of the representatives of the secular people in Israel. I never agreed to it because what
But you
should
never
have
go
been
to
done.
the Kotel, Merav. Seriously, you never go to the Kotel.
So what does it
You're
mean?
using
So
it as a
I-
political tool when you
No.
couldn't
Ladies,
care
ladies,
less
You
I
are
will
not
swap
right.
places. I
That
will
is-
change
You
places.
never go to the Kotel. I go to the Kotel few times a year. I go to the Kotel every Elul, before Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur. Do you do this?
Okay,
Do you
so
come
now-
anytime to the Kotel?
So now what you're
Do
doing?
you even care about the Kotel?
So now what
Your
you're
party
doing?
was willing to give up the Kotel.
So
Please.
What Tzipi Hotovely, my friend, is doing now is implementing Netanyahu's saying that the leftists have forgotten what it means to be Jewish. And what she's been telling you actually is that I am a less good of a Jew because I pray less in the Kotel than she does.
You don't care about
I
this
do
place.
not agree to
Thank
that
you.
definition. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. Ladies. I'm sorry, but time is running. And I'm only on my third question. I prepared 72 questions. I thought it was a 2-day session. Anyway, as you can see, how the topic I've chose was so important that's exactly the reaction that religious matters provoke. As you can see, always religious matters, instead of bringing us together, on the contrary, are provoking a big conflict.
But
my
Boaz,
question
this
now,
is not a religious issue. This is also a national issue.
Of course it is.
And
That's
that is
why we
why
asked
it's
you.
so dramatic.
That's why we asked you to comment.
Yes.
That's right. Now I'd like to ask you a question which is a bit delicate because you see the public, and this is Israelis, I mean, Americans too. And the question is the public that we love so much, and that is why we're here, and we support a lot. You agree with me? I think you agree on that we all support the public. You agree on that? This is the first time ever they agree on something. Please clap your hands to me. I deserve. But my question is, do you think that Israelis in America should have a representation role, or should also participate in the transformation of our country? It can start with voting or a saying in what is happening in Israel. Please, Ms.
I think what you're doing is very important. This is why I'm here. I think that being involved is the most important thing. You're all Israelis. You know how the game works. You lived in Israel. I'm sure one day you'll be back. And I think, for me, the only way to make sure that Jews here will have meaning is by having strong Israel and strong Jewish identity. And I think that, unfortunately, American Jews are losing at big time. I see the numbers. I'm in the foreign ministry. 80% of American Jews assimilate. And this is something we all should be concerned about. Because without Jewish identity and without the connection to Israel, this amazing Jewry will be lost. And I really think that this is a tragedy of the Jewish world. And I think that to be involved and to have all the great things you're doing here is a great start. And I think what Sheldon and Miri Edelson did by starting, and Adam Milstein, of course, by starting IAC is very, very important. And I think the most important thing is the young generation. I came here for the campus tour. I think the people that are sitting in this room still understand how important it is that Israel will be strong. But unfortunately, some people from the young generation take Israel for granted. They take Israel as something that should be criticized. Now, it's okay to criticize. We live in a democratic society. But it's one thing to criticize policy, but it's a whole different thing to criticize the only democratic state that there is in the Middle East. And I think this is where the red line should cross.
Thank you. Time is running, and we have commercials soon, you know. I don't. Miss Michaeli, a question to you. You know, BDS, you know, everybody's worried about BDS. I have my own opinion. I believe that BDS exists. You know why? Because we won. That's why BDS exists. But I would like to ask you, Ms. Michaeli, do you agree or even partially agree with the effort of BDS groups? And do you support the IAC coalition for action efforts to legislate against them?
First of all, I wasn't aware of this initiatives, but by all means, it's interesting and worth checking, but I do not, I mean, it's...
BDS, for example, I'll make it easy for you. BDS, for example, concerning the Jewish state.
No need to elaborate. BDS is
I never collaborate. I lived in France.
BDS is a form of anti-Semitism. It's got nothing to do with constructive criticism towards Israel or its policies. This is something we all agree on, seriously. BDS is not something that I think any Israeli should support, even those who want, as I do, to dramatically change the situation in Israel and to end the conflict in a peaceful agreement with our neighbors, something which is achievable. And to answer your question from before, Tzipi, this is something that Labor and the Zionist Union stand for, believe in, and know that it is achievable once there will be political will in the Prime Minister's chair to do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Hotovely, our Israeli Americans, we're here in America, in D.C., and that is our crowd. How are they different than other Jews when it comes to making Israel's case?
Well, I think that you live in a different world than most of Americans because you've experienced what does it mean to live in Israel. I think for most of the people that never visited Israel, Israel is something that is connected to wars. Israel is something that is connected to, I don't know, maybe the way it used to be at the beginning of it. I think the most important thing that should be done is to extend projects like Birthright. I really think the only way to really understand Israel is to visit in Israel. The only way to understand Israel is to live in Israel. And this is why I think that you want to put efforts and put, of course, your money about projects. Put money on a projects that bring people to Israel, that experience Israel, that give the people the time to learn and study the amazing technologies that Israel can offer to the world, the amazing project that Israel has in so many fields, like medicine, like water technologies. I'm coming from Rehovot. This is where the Weizmann Institute is. This is a world-known place that brings innovation to the entire world. And I think that this is what we should do. We should combine all our powers in order to bring people to Israel.
Thank you very much, Ron. So will you first of all, permit me to thank you both and to say, and I'll only please you. You want to say another thing?
Word, yes, just to say one thing.
10 seconds.
I want to
Otherwise, I'll be fired.
I want to acknowledge the IAC for what it does.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, each and every one of us, yes, so much. Each and every one of us has multi-identities. We are Jews, Israelis, man, doesn't matter where you came from, whatever your profession is, etc. And I think our Israeliness is one identity that no other country gives its citizens. And you carry IAC enables. So it's so great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming to our session. I will say only one thing. I'll be very nice now to my friend Merav, we know for many, many years, and I'll say, and I have a lot of respect for both of them, and I would say I have so much admiration for women in general, and why? Because the best session for me until now, but it's only 2 members of the Knesset. That has nothing to do with me, of course. and yesterday, I think we're all very much impressed and so grateful and thankful to the ambassador of the United States at the UN. What a speech yesterday. Thank you so much, all of you.
That's it?
אתה רוצה...
יאללה.
Yeah, sure.
כן.
You want more? You're staying.
Wait.
Oh, it's over. I'm sorry. תודה.
Thank you.
תודה רבה.